What's up, Pod Pals? It's your buddy Adam from Podcasting Business School, the show where I teach podcasters how to love their podcast like a hobby and build it like a business. In today's podcast audit episode, I've got my Pod Pals, Sharon and Tracy from the Feet of Clay Confessions of the Cult Sisters podcast. Sharon, Tracy, welcome to the show.
Hello.
Thank you, Adam.
This is going to be a lively one, Pod Pals, so buckle up.
Buckle up. And we're not used to being on video. We've only been doing audio, so we're trying to be on our best behavior.
Nice. Yeah. All right.
And you don't know whether or not I'm wearing pants. That's the truth.
That's the bonus of podcasting. I'm like, I've got an international business where pants are not required, and that's unique. All right, so let's talk a little bit about your show and some goals. And the way I like to kind of frame that is think about the next 6 months. If you two and I were to meet up, and hopefully today I give you some awesome podcasting wisdom, you implement it, and things are going really, really well. I would love for you to paint that picture for me 6 months from now. What does going really well look like for you? So Sharon, why don't you take the lead on this one?
Okay. Well, that is one thing that I think is a problem that we have not necessarily defined for ourselves. We want to reach, a quote, the biggest audience possible, but that everybody says that. So that's not measurable. That's not something to be able to hold yourself accountable to. Okay. Right now, we started in April. We've had a little over 5,000 downloads since then. Our right now, the podcast predictor says 550 plus downloads for each new episode. And so, I would let me put it this way. My husband said he's going to give me a big pat on the back when we hit like 10,000 downloads, but that's not going to be a problem.
Only a pat on the back? I would want more than a pat on the back if I hit 10,000 downloads.
Okay. But that's total downloads of all episodes, right? Yeah. So unique listeners, if we could, I don't know if it's reasonable within 10 months, but I'd love to be at 10,000 unique listeners within a year. That would be a goal for me.
Nice. Tracy, anything to add to that?
No, I think that's a good goal. I think that we have heard some benchmarks kind of in the area that we broadcast in, which is kind of the religious ex-evangelical market, that's 2,000 to 5,000 per episode. So I think that's a number that's stuck in my head. Like, wow, that would be great if we could get to in the 5,000 per episode downloads as we release them.
Okay. So let's talk about these benchmarks a little bit. I know you got some updated stats, or kind of look at that too if we need to. But I think we're pretty good. So when it comes to podcasting stats, we always want to make sure that we measure it at the 30-day post-release mark. That's kind of the standard. Because if you deal with sponsors and things like that, that's what they're going to want to know. When you release a new episode, 30 days from that release date, how many downloads is it getting? Because if they're going to invest, they want that number. That's going to be a very important analytic that we need to be able to produce. So 2 benchmarks that I always encourage people to strive for initially. You already passed one of them, so we can celebrate that. The first one is at that 30-day mark, if your podcast episodes average 125 downloads, 125, you're a top 50% podcast, 50. All right. So that's very doable, and you've already done it. Congrats. The next benchmark is 1,000. All right. 1,000 downloads at the 30-day mark. That's going to put you in the top 20%. So that's kind of that next
30-day mark.
Yep. Okay. That's the mark that we're shooting for. Looking at 30 days and all your episodes as you release them, they're crossing that 1,000 download per episode threshold.
Per episode.
Yep. And that's going to, I think that's going to be super doable. I mean, you're probably already getting close now as far as like within the next few months. You're definitely going to be knocking on that door. And being in the religious podcast space, comedy and religion are always like the top 2 back and forth. And then true crime kind of sneaks up there a little bit.
I think we can combine them all.
We're both.
Crime, religion, and comedy.
This is a true crime comedic religious podcast. Maybe
We're
we should
not
change
called
the name
confessions.
to that.
We're not called confessions our cult sisters for nothing, folks.
For nothing. Unfortunately, there are some crimes in that space.
Yes.
So
So I like your chances of blowing past these numbers that you've put for yourself. I think those are very realistic goals. It sounds like you've got obviously entertaining personalities, and that leads to entertaining content. It sounds like you have some stories to tell, which that's part of the deal. So I think now we need to really just look at getting strategic with the organic growth factors like search engine optimization and things like that. And then we need to look at what we need, kind of like boots on the ground, just putting in work with marketing wise that we can do. So those are two levers that we can control. So the first one is looking at SEO. And we look at SEO, we look at the name of the show, we look at the host description, and we look at the individual episode titles. Those are the areas that we were going to be like, do we have keywords in there?
Okay.
So with obviously people are finding your show organically with the numbers that you're putting up so far. So, and we've already got a fairly long name, the Feet of Clay Confessions of the Cult Sisters podcast.
Yes.
I mean, the word cult, the word confessions may be kind of part of the SEO factor there. I just feel like if there's some sort of word we could sneak in there in that extended title that pulls from the religious, like confessions of two former evangelical, or something that alludes to religion. But we could also, like this is, like I said, this is already a pretty long title. We could look at the description in your host and making sure words like religion, I mean, anything that you think somebody would put into a podcast player app like Spotify or Apple to find a show like yours, we've got to put
Comedy,
those words.
crime, true, religion. Hey, so when you say the show description or host description, is that the thing that we've got? This is how naive we are. Where is that? What is that?
So when you go and find a new show on like Apple Podcast, there's the little blurb about the show underneath the picture. That's what's called the host description. So
the
where do you guys,
the picture.
Where do you load up your episodes? Do you host in like Buzzsprout or Libsyn? Or
Buzzsprout.
Okay. So when you go into log in Buzzsprout, there'll be a tab at the top where you adjust all the main podcast stuff. That's where you would change the name of the show or your art. You click which categories you're listed in. The host description is in there. So what I want you to do in there is the normal format I like to use is have an intro paragraph that describes what the show's about. But I want you to use as many keywords as you can physically fit in there. So just review that and go, all right, I need religion. I need, comedy, comedic perspective, anything that people would put into that search bar. And ask your listeners, if you've got an email list, if you've got any sort of social media following, even just a call to action on the episode, create a little survey, do a little Survey Monkey or something like that, and just ask them, when you went to Apple or when you went to Spotify, what did you put in the search bar to find a show like this? What were you looking for? So for my show, I know most people put podcast about podcasting or podcasting tips. So I have the words podcasting and tips in as many episodes. I've got it all over all my branding. Like I use it as often as possible on purpose. And that's why so many people are finding me because of that. Does that make sense so far?
Absolutely.
So that's the initial plan.
It's interesting. My sense is that the majority of people that have found us so far have done it because of like networking. Like they know us from something else we do, and we said, hey, we're doing this, and so they've jumped on board, and then they've shared it with their friends. So that idea of organic people just searching and finding it, I hadn't even thought about that before.
And I think
easy.
I think we crafted ours more from a text, like how would this read in a book? We wanted it to sound kind of text savvy instead of search savvy. So that's great advice.
And this is the easy stuff that you can just set it and forget it. And like you get the right words in there and it just keeps serving up that organic, just new people, the right people just finding you. They're searching the thing. So this is a great social media post. Go wherever you play on social and go, hey, here's what our show is about. If you're looking for a podcast of this topic, what are you going to put in Apple Podcasts? What words are you going to use? It's like when you talk to your toddler, use your words. Like that's, you ask your audience to use their words.
Or your significant other, but.
Use your words. So that's like.
Safe words? Are we talking safe words?
No,
is that,
no,
sorry.
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 So like that's a great way to do like a little Instagram stories poll, Facebook post, LinkedIn, whatever, wherever you play on social, ask them and just make a word bank and go, okay, all these words need to go in my host description. And if an alarm bell goes off and go, oh, that word right there, we could swap that out in our title because the title has the most power and it's not
the
even
most
close.
power. So
that's like the most powerful wizard on the top of the mountain there that we want to really make sure that we've got his mojo working. So, so then we do that initial paragraph. Then underneath that, my little special sauce that I use is what are the 5 to 10 Google questions that somebody would type into Google and ask Google that your show answers. So what's it like to be a cult member? What does it feel like to leave the evangelical church or whatever? And then just all like core topics that you cover and think about your most downloaded episodes and go, what's the Google question that one answers? And then list it in the host. And I would start considering using those questions as episode titles as well. These are going to be really great episode titles. What it felt like to leave a cult or start a cult or do my first blood sacrifice or whatever, I don't know. Whatever happens.
Chickens. We did kill chickens.
So like
you might turn audiences off from that,
but
the
proper way to kill a chicken during blood sacrifice. A step-by-step, you can have downloadable PDFs on this. Like this is your lead magnet. So that's like. Wait,
I just got to say, it wasn't ritualized sacrifice of chickens. It was chickens we were going to eat. No. We were going to eat them, and then they all got sick, so we had to kill them all. Anyway, okay, sorry.
I'm glad that's explained. That makes me feel better. So that's when we look at SEO. Those are the 3 zones that we want to look at. Now, and again, that's the organic stuff. The other area is kind of just the marketing factor. There's 3 categories I always look at with this that I really focus on with, when somebody hires me and they're like, let's grow this show as much as possible. These are the 3 focus areas. The first one is social media marketing. And it's like, all right, I've got this 72-hour window thing that I use as far as a system where if a new episode goes out, I want 5 marketing assets to be released in the next 3 days, 72 hours. So 5 marketing assets in 72 hours.
Is that when the show drops or before it drops?
I like episode is live. That starts the clock. So for me, I release my first episode of the week on Tuesdays. So Tuesday morning, I put up a carousel post on Instagram with my top 4 takeaways. That's asset number 1. I go live on Instagram on Tuesday night. That is marketing asset number 2 because I do a little through line discussion. Then Wednesday morning, I do my newsletter. That is asset number 3. Then I'll put up an Instagram reel video with a highlight snippet. That is asset number 4. And then on Thursday morning, I'll do another like face to camera. I'll have my daughter help me record something because she gets more views because she's cute. And something talking, it's on topic. It's always referring back to the episode. So that's 5 unique separate assets in the first 72 hours. Now, if you're not doing any, like let's start with 1 or 3 or whatever and build up to 5. But that formula works really well. And that gives you a goal to shoot for that's pretty tangible. We got to let people know. And the thing with this strategy specifically is that we have to consider our current listeners and our current people that follow us on social media and people that are on our email list. And like, we got to keep those people listening. So this strategy is as much about keeping. It's like when you're in business, it's easier to keep a customer than to go acquire a new one. you know? So
Right.
same thing here. Let's keep those people listening and happy and engaged. And we're, opening the door for engagement and conversation. And then we're using hashtags and things like that, trying to find new people that find us, and we pull them in that way. So that's the first pillar. We look at 72-hour rule with 5 assets in 72 hours.
So can I just back up? So you're not doing any pre-release promo of that particular episode. You do it after it drops.
Correct. I don't. What I find, and I'm not against it, but what I find is podcasters are so busy, and we tend to not like being on social media already. A lot of us don't. And it's just like another thing. So I don't want to waste any effort before the episode's actually live. Now, I do have an email strategy. Like I release 2 newsletters a week. My Monday email, I'll do a little tip that is a preview to the Tuesday episode. But that's a little different strategy-wise, because that's just a part of my newsletter write-up. So I'm not against it, but if you're like, dude, I've only got so much time.
Only got so much, yeah.
I want everything to go. Right. Make those priority, and then if you can work it in, then it's just a quick face to camera video. Hey, did you know that blah 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 blah? Well, tune in tomorrow because this episode goes live. Get ready, and so I would make it super simple. But yeah, I don't think it's a bad strategy. But if you're running out of time, I would prioritize post release.
And what you're saying makes more sense too, because if the episode's already dropped and then it piques somebody's interest, if it's not live yet, where do they go? But if it is live, they can click on it right away.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Our super fans are obsessed with us, and they'll do whatever. But the average listener is not going to give you a second chance on that episode. If that's the only thing they see in your feed the whole week, and it's not even live yet, they're not going to go back and be like, I got to go find out when this thing's live. And it just usually won't happen. So I don't want to have that like one strike and you're out situation. So yeah.
That's great.
Is that helpful?
Hey, that right there, that was worth the price of admission. Thank you, Adam.
I mean, the listeners don't realize I started charging $10K for these things. So no, still free. Still free. Still free. All right. So the other 2 zones that we look at with growth, the next one is paid advertising. And I've got some new strategies cooking with Facebook and Instagram ads that I'll be talking about on the show here very soon. But my gold standard is what are called podcast player app ads, banner ads that are way cheap. And we can get, dozens, hundreds of new subscribers, depending on how much you want to invest in it. But
say that again. It's podcast player
app ads. So my favorite app to advertise on is called Overcast.fm. It's just like Apple Podcasts or Spotify, except it's like the next tier down. Still has millions of downloads a month, millions of people listening. It's a very popular app with Android users. Shout out to any Android users that are listening on Overcast right now. You probably saw one of my banner ads and clicked on it. So they have competitive pricing that changes daily for all the different categories. So for you all, I'm looking at comedy category. I'm looking at true crime. I'm looking at religion. I'm looking at spirituality. Like all these categories are your wheelhouse. And you check, it's overcast.fm/ads. And they've got all their active daily pricing. If they sell out a category, it says sold out. And you can go on there and buy an ad. And within about 5 minutes, it's up and running. It's not like Facebook ads. There's no crazy, confusing thing where you're like, I'm just giving Zuckerberg money. I know it. Like, it's just like, that's all. When I go into Facebook, I'm like, that's all I feel like. I just donated money. He's going to buy a new goat or something with that money. I don't know. So
wait, does he sacrifice goats?
He might. No. Maybe have this whole thing happen.
You're going to get shut down, Sharon. Shut down.
I saw that Facebook movie. So we look at the app, and you pick your category, and let's say it's like $250. You pay for it. They take your art from your show that's already loaded in the podcast players. You get like a sentence and a half of words to put in there. And those are important. We need to make those count. Yeah. That's the only thing that you adjust. You pay for it, and it starts running for 30 days. And they give you an active daily tally of how many people saw the banner, how many people clicked on it, and how many people subscribed to your podcast.
Okay. So you can really track your ROI. You can really track the ROI.
Yes. So, and they give you a prediction as you see, if you go on that website and see the charts on the far right side, it'll give you a prediction of how many new subscribers you'll acquire on average. And it'll be like, 50 to 75. And it's not downloads, that's subscribers. So if you got a bunch of episodes, you got 75 new subscribers, they're binging on all those episodes. And this turns into thousands of downloads. All right. So my goal personally, and for my clients, is $7 or less per new subscriber. All right. So if I'm paying $7 or less per new subscriber, I'm happy with that. Sometimes we get it for $2. Sometimes we get it for $5. Sometimes we're scraping in right at that 7 mark. Sometimes something gets weird and they pay 10. And we're like, all right, let's go back to the drawing board on that. But so many people are doing like 12 downloads an episode. I'm like, go run a freaking ad for $200 and go get yourself 20 new subscribers. And you just tripled your downloads right there. So this is a really easy way to do it. So that's kind of the second category. Okay. And I recommend starting with overcast.fm/ads. Very useful. Okay. Now, third category, other people's podcasts. We got to leverage other people's podcasts, whether it's with just collaborations on social media or, and obviously guesting on other people's shows in your space. Telling your story on other religious-based podcasts and things like that, comedy podcasts, people in the spiritual realm of podcasting. I would be networking with them like crazy. Now, quick question: do you all have guests on your show, or is it just you two talking mainly?
We're gonna have we've had one already, and we're adding a second, and yes, we're gonna do guests.
Okay. And we do have a good collaborative network of some of these ex-evangelicals, so that do some podcast sharing, and we haven't done that yet because we're still trying to catch up.
Yeah. So one strategy you can use with this is go, and if you have connections in this space that already have podcasts, start there. Because ideally, you and I would prioritize any guest that has a podcast that you can potentially be a guest on. My strategy is always invite first, make friends. They invite me on their show after that. And that's worked very, very well for me. In my health podcast, I did this. What I did with my health show is I looked at the Apple top 200 rankings and the health charts. And I just started inviting all those top ranked podcasters on my show. I'm pretty good at making friends, crack a few jokes, make them laugh, and, wine them and dine them a little bit. All of a sudden we're friends. And they invite me back on, and I blew up my show. Like, it just went crazy. Okay. Because I was on like 50 of the top 200 shows, and they always asked me after I interviewed them first.
So, but are we kind of like piddly nothing? I mean, we've just started. So why would somebody who's got a high profile be interested?
You're doing nice numbers. Now, you're doing nice numbers, but what I would do if you use that chart topping strategy, start at the bottom of the top 200 and start inviting. Okay. You all may be on there. Like with the numbers that you're doing, you could be cracking into that top 200 depending on which categories you're listed in. That's something that we can take a look at. But that's something that you go to look at 190 through 200 and look at their shows. Make sure that's like an actual good fit. That's important. I forgot to mention that. I actually had my VA. I used to have my VA like vet all that. I'm like, you know what I want? Look at the next 10. Get back to me with the ones that fit. And then I would look at them and I would pick like 3 or 4 to invite. And then 1 or 2 of those will say yes. And then half of those invite me on their show. And that's how the thing works. The rankings are always changing too. So new shows are popping in and out. But then some of these ranked podcasters have already interviewed some of these people that are up the list, and you can ask for a warm introduction. And all of a sudden you leapfrog into the top 100 of connections because so-and-so already interviewed him and they'd make a warm connection. Oh, sure. Yeah, I had a great experience on their show. We'd love to come on your show too. And all of a sudden we're kind of jumping up there with the networking with the bigger shows that are out there in your space. So I would put in work with those 3 lanes with marketing. We fix our SEO a little bit, not fix, but just optimize. And I think these goals that you've set 6 months from now could totally be doing it. Like wrapping up the end of the year, knocking out big numbers. And that's the route that I would take. So
that's great. You're going to get that pat on the back, Sharon.
Yes.
But I will ask for more. You're right. I'm going to ask for a lot more.
Very nice. Okay, so I want to make sure that everybody, I want to do my part to help spread the word on what you all have cooking on your show. So, Tracy, why don't you let us know where people can go, website, social media, where do you hang out, where can people find you?
Our main thrust right now is Instagram, and it's feetofclay.cultsisters, and we have lots of good images. We are just getting started on our website, which again, these names, they kind of cross over, but that's confessionsofthecultsisters.com. And then we are on Facebook. We have a page. And Sharon, what is the page of our Facebook?
I don't know.
It's Cult Sisters. So that is one thing. We would love your advice later on as well. We have Confessions of the Cult Sisters, Feet of Clay, and they're all in some kind of forum in our social media, according to what we can get. So a little bit of confusion, but
yeah,
if you go to Instagram, feetofclay.cultsisters, it will lead you everywhere.
There you go. Let's start on the gram. All my people follow me on the gram. So
yes, start there.
Let's do that. That's a good call to action right there. All right. So Sharon and Tracy, lots of fun as expected. I think we got a solid plan in front of us here. I'm excited to get a report back and see how things are cooking here in 6 months. And for anybody that's listening in, if you want to come on for a podcast audit, I just added more time slots for my summer schedule. I'm doing a lot of these this summer because I tend to not do as many towards the end of the year. So I'm kind of front loading them. So hop on my schedule. You can access that on the main website, www.podcastingbusiness.school. And with that, Pod Pals, I'm going to send you out into the world wishing you health, happiness, and many downloads. We will see you next time.